the amendments that have come down from the Legislative Council for us to debate. There's 10 pages of amendments here. These are the government's own amendments because they have recognised, after the hard work of my colleagues, that the 300 amendments that we put to the House when this bill was introduced needed to be considered. And whilst we still believe, it's not a belief, it's a fact, that this bill is not going to address the youth crime issue that we're seeing in Victoria, because we are seeing, with the passing of these amendments even, that the bill will still have weaker bail laws than was in this state in March of this year. So it's disappointing to stand to speak on this youth justice bill, having put my colleagues put so much work into this and still find ourselves as a state of Victoria with weakened laws that allow the crime rates to continue to escalate. The message we are sending to criminals in this state, particularly the youth, that I believe we have a very strong responsibility to guide on a pathway of improvement, not recidivism, is we are absolutely failing them. By weakening the bail laws and making it possible, such as for people under 18 years of age to have any number of bails, given bail on any number of occasions, despite when they've made committed a crime when they're on bail, is sending a message that no matter what you do, you will just get off every single time. Now, I don't understand how anyone can think that unless you put boundaries and consequences in place for any young person, and I think most parents find this, then that's how they learn responsibility and how to work and be in a family, be in a society in a cohesive manner. That is what you try to instill in a child from the very time they learn how to communicate as a 2-year-old and share. And then we get to youth crime and we say, doesn't matter what you do, you can hurt someone, you can steal from someone, you can carjack and take a car and drive it irresponsibly without a licence at high speed and put people at risk, and you will actually get off. This is why we are seeing Victoria go backwards. This is why we are seeing our crime rates escalate. And it is evidenced with our crime rates. If you look at the aggravated burglary statistics over the last 10 years since Labor, the Allan Labor government, have been in power, we're seeing a 146% increase in the aggravated burglary figures since 2014. We're seeing car theft up by 22%. So we have a crime crisis in Victoria, and these very weak laws that the Allan Labor government are putting through are enabling. They're enabling the crime rates. They're enabling people to, instead of getting the right message, which, it's been happening for centuries, that people get punished for doing something wrong. Now, we don't have to actually imprison people. We understand that it's important to have youth diversion programs and reform, and that's where the government's energy should have been placed. But instead of placing it in those areas of guiding someone who's done something wrong through a reform program and making it mandatory for them to attend so they actually understand the consequences of their action, this government in the last budget cut $20 million from youth diversion programs. That's the message Victorians are seeing from the Allan Labor government, that it is absolutely okay to engage in crime. That's why we're seeing youth gangs who are growing in numbers and more out of control, because they're allowed to get away with it. Now, I don't think you'd have to be blind Freddy not to hear what's going on in Victoria, because every day you turn on the radio and there is more crime being reported on the radio, from shops being burned, burglaries, carjacking, knife crime. It is actually very frightening. And when I see, even in South West Coast, where we've had a long history of fairly low crime rates, the changes that I'm seeing in the towns of Warrnambool and Portland, it is quite frightening. Last week I met with the police, who, can I begin and remind the community what a great job police do. My brother has been a policeman since He was about 21, so I've had close affinity with family members who are actually in the police force, and I've always admired the commitment, the bravery and the courage that they exhibit, and their commitment, as I said, to Victoria and keeping the people safe. But they don't feel backed in now. They don't feel that they're getting the support from the government. And when you see legislation like this, you can understand why. I met with the police in Warrnambool last week, and I was really impressed with their level of commitment, what they are doing to actually ensure that people in the Warrnambool community are feeling safe, making sure they're meeting with the people. There was a forum held recently which was very, very well attended because people are getting very nervous. They are seeing the change in their own community. I'm hearing from the shop owners in the main street of the larger towns where they're feeling unsafe. They're seeing much more abusive behaviour from people in the street. I'm hearing from young people. One girl said to me, "I've travelled the world on my own, but the people that are gathering outside a particular venue where alcohol is sold, they're frightening me, and I've never felt so confronted." So these are stories that we don't want to be hearing. We want to be giving the police the tools so they actually can manage the community safety in a way that they have done for a very long time. But something has drastically changed in the last 10 years, and here is the evidence of what that change is. We've got laws that are being weakened, and that's why we're seeing quotes from people like the IGA, owner of the IGA, Lincoln Weimer, who said, "Our bail laws and courts are weak." This government is trying to raise the age for charging people, and the government and courts have little care for the victims. And we saw that when we had in the bill an amendment that we proposed initially. The government was actually trying to silence victims, and they don't want the victims to be taken into consideration. We've opposed that, and now they have actually improved the situation for victims somewhat. But when you see these sorts of the culture of this government trying to silence victims, decreasing bail laws, making them weaker, not putting boundaries in place and not having consequences for young people, not having a diversion program available and mandatory so that they can take a different path than a path that will send them down a life of crime and more than likely a negative lifestyle into the future, and one which will probably end up having a prison as a part of it, which no one wants to see for young people. So with crime rates escalating, what we have is a crime crisis in Victoria, and a government too weak and too inadequate to be able to help back our police in. I will finish here by saying the community are desperate for change. They want to see the fact that the police have the rules and the resources they need, the resources they need and the laws they need to keep their community safe. Living in fear is not how a Victoria should be, and that is how many Victorians are feeling. And when we're seeing up in the country even more the fear of a community without the resources required to keep them safe, I think the government has failed Victoria and needs to think about how they can strengthen the police resources to keep Victorians safe.